Hello and welcome to ZX Spectrum Arcade. In this series of YouTube videos we take a look at Spectrum games if they'd have been launched in 1978 onwards, when the arcade machines were the same capability that would have looked good in an arcade cabinet, or we take a look at the arcade games that were converted to the Spectrum and seeing how well they was compared to the original arcade cabinet themselves. The last one was a Spectrum game that was possibly good enough to be an arcade machine. This time round we've got an arcade conversion of one of my favourite all-time shoot-em-ups. A shoot-em-up that was one of the first to use voice samples to add a little bit extra. We're going to take a look, and if you already know the music in the background, you probably know the game that I'm talking about. It is Bosconian. To give it its full name, it's Star Destroyer from 1981, but we had to wait about 6 years before we had a version of this that actually come out on the Spectrum that was credible to the arcade machine. Let's have a look at the arcade version, including boot sequence, before we move on to see how well the Spectrum conversion compares. Yeah, so I've got to say a big thank you for the people that have provided this footage for me to show you the original NAMCO 1981 arcade game Bosconian. It'll take a long time before it actually boots. You can see the background is in place. This would have been the boot sequence as you switch the machine on. Yeah. And then you get the title that comes scrolling across the screen, Bosconian. It also tells you a little bit on what it is you have to do in the game before you insert your quarters or your kinds in England to enable to play this great arcade shoot 'em up. One of my favourites, as the arcade I used to go to had this in. In fact, one or two shops did too. You know, Chippy's always used to be there. So, there's the starship you can destroy by shooting all 6 out, or one single bullet down the centre will destroy the starship as well. So, as you can see on the actual demo that was running on the arcade, you didn't have any sound at all. It was basically just pure sound effects. But no music. What? Okay, we can live with that because we're trying to get an arcade actual machine.
Lost all.
And there was the super sound of the voice sample you heard, which gave this game a little bit of intensity. And if you notice, the starships are shooting bullets, and the bad guys who have a spotter drone, that is the spotter drone, which is the triangle thing, which alerts the fleet to come and attack your direction. You have a rather large map down in the bottom there, which allows you to locate where the ship are, the big starships that you need to destroy. Sort of remind me a little bit of Battlestar Galactica. I don't know why it did, with those sort of triangular sort of ships that starships that they had. And you can see that the baddies are rather slow moving. In fact, you almost saw that unless the ships fire at him, he can fly through them. So he doesn't get destroyed by actually hitting the ships. But if they fire at him and those slow bullets hit him, then they will actually die.
Condition lead. Condition lead. Condition lead.
And there we go, the end of the sequence is
Lost all.
ready before we start the next level, level 2.
Alive.
Agree, an absolutely fantastic conversion. So, how did the Spectrum hold up when it came up with its conversion? And my apologies if that was a little bit loud, that section. Didn't quite get the volumes quite set. The loading screen, Mastertronic 1987, and this was from basically that year. Right, great loading screen, but something rather unusual compared to the arcade version. Actually, it's a welcome addition. In this case, it's a fantastic AY tune, which sort of gives you a little bit more than just a demo. Obviously, you wouldn't want the tune running in the background on the arcade unit. There's a little trick involved in the code here, so that some of the graphics there on the screen string, if you like, the screen RAM, I call it screen string unknowingly, I don't know why I've got that stuck in my head, is permanently there. And the, shall we say, data graphics is just displayed in the black area. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 black areas, blacked out areas, that will be displayed with the, shall we say, pixel art and data graphics as you play the game. That way it saves a few K on constantly rendering the outside border, and I understand that trickery, but did they need to do that? You're given the free options to redefine your keys, because after all you're using a keyboard, not a joystick, but you're also given the option of Kempston and Sinclair. So how does this game compare to the arcade? Well, we're going to give it a go now, and on this occasion I'm going to go for quick response, and all the original information. I'm just leaving it play for a minute. Let's redefine the keys. And let's get into the game. Round 1. Right, curiously, you don't start like the arcade machine being able to fire in both directions. Let's cause the starship a little bit. We will destroy the starship. Fire. And there we didn't even get an alert sound that he was under attack. Nor do you get a spotter drone like in the arcade, which signifies if you don't destroy him quick enough that you will be attacked. Fortunately, and that time we did get an alert tone, so it's a bit hit and miss whether you get an alert tone, but you can hide in there and avoid. As long as you're able to hide in there, that's fine. But when you're hiding in there, if you notice that the radar doesn't tell you where they are, press enter. When they're on the screen, you'll be able to use one of your smart bombs. There we go, they've just all committed suicide. So click those. You will find extra lives jotted around. That was a needless death. There's your extra life, there's some fuel, but you still can only fire in one direction. So how do you get to fire in both directions? Well, you have to look for a little item called a dual fire bonus, which I'm having a good look around to see if I can find it. Because the map isn't all that big, you tend to run into it occasionally. Now, the downside to this is the starships themselves only fire missiles out the main bit. They don't fire bullets out to the side of them. But you do get a lovely little jig when you complete the level. And I could do with finding some more extra lives because I'm already down to the 2 lives I need. There you go. Now I can fire in both directions, which I think is a shame because you should have that from the get-go, just like the arcade. But on this one, it's given to you rather late, which is kind of annoying. And now I can see that they're coming from all directions. and it doesn't matter, I managed to get me extra life. Time for a little jig. I do like that little jig. You don't get that on the AY version, just for the 48k version. It kind of misses that bit out, but generally speaking, that little jig adds like a reward to completing the level on your game Bosconian. The downside is, if you notice, you hardly have time to react to the baddies because they approach a lot quicker on the screen than they would do in the arcade, which sort of ruins this almost great conversion. Why? Well, you've got no chance. They're very fast moving, and sometimes you don't get an alert that they're coming, and other times when you think you're safe and you've killed all the, shall we say, bad ships that are out to destroy you, it's not the case. There could still be a lone shark out there somewhere ready to destroy you. I just saw a bullet come from somewhere there, but there was no starship when I got there. All in all though, for the Spectrum game, this is not a bad, shall we say, game to play. Quite addictive, but ridiculously way harder than the arcade. I'm virtually committing suicide attacking those ships because I'm trying to get them with a single bullet. In the arcade, you can do that a lot easier, but the arcade is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. You also get a fantastic little bit where you can put your score. And because I like to use a three-letter word, there we go. So, Bosconian for the ZX Spectrum. Was it a good arcade conversion? It wasn't, shall we say, faithful to the arcade conversion, but it was sort of similar and could have been a little bit better. I do like the addition of the AY tune there because it's kind of adding a little bit of atmosphere that isn't provided by the arcade, but it's also making up for the shortcomings that you don't have sound effects on the Spectrum in order to recreate those alert battle stations, red alert, you know, that you get on the arcade itself. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this episode of ZX Arcade, and I'll see you on the next one, which won't be too long away, hopefully, because I've got an event coming up of ZX Arcade. Thanks for watching, Retro Robbins.